Hello, welcome to Rough Cut Film Review. This is the review of The Great Gatsby. And before I start, remember you can reach me by email, which is a newfangled thing that's going to be very big apparently, on roughcutfilmreview@gmail.com. I think that's right. So, Gatsby, it's thought of as possibly the greatest American novel ever, and it's very much tied into the American dream. Here we have Baz Luhrmann, the Australian director, who did a successful version of Romeo and Juliet. I think he called it Romeo plus Juliet all those years ago, again featuring Leonardo DiCaprio. He did Australia and Moulin Rouge, and here we have the camp melodrama from his previous works. You know, it's very obvious there. Baz Luhrmann, as I've alluded to, brings his own distinct style to this, and it looks terrible. It's a period piece that looks like a pop video. It's the kind of lazy cliches that's very expensive. So we've got stylized black people playing in jazz bands and as waiters. We've got burlesque dancers who are lip syncing to the over-the-top soundtrack that's very much in the foreground. We've got loud rap music because the lyrics sort of fit what's happening on screen, to the extent of talking about lots of money and drinking expensive booze. That's the kind of stuff we've got going on. That's the level of thought we've got here. It's all style, absolutely no substance. In terms of tone, it does look like a musical. It looks like it should be Moulin Rouge. It looks like Bugsy Malone. It looks like Dick Tracy. And these are not compliments for a film that cost $100 million plus. At times it looks like characters are about to burst into song, but then they sort of go, oh, hang on, this isn't a musical, and stop. And I could easily imagine that Madonna had made this film were she to be given the budget. As I've said, it stars Leonardo DiCaprio, who does his best as Gatsby, but by no means is he at his best. We've got Kirsty Mulligan, who's normally very, very good. We get very little sense of her character here. Tobey Maguire and Joel Edgerton. In terms of plot, think along the lines of Brideshead Revisited. It's about a young man who wanted to be a writer and write the great American novel, but then he changes his mind and he spends the summer on Long Island learning about finance in this little cabiny thing because he wants to become a bonds trader on Wall Street. His neighbour turns out to be Gatsby, the Oxford man, war hero, fabulously wealthy at 32 years old. He's young money, he's a businessman. He holds these debauched parties, but nobody ever really sees him, even though it's this highlight of the social calendar for everyone who's anyone in New York City. There are loads of rumours about Gatsby. Who is he? He was a German spy, he's killed a man, etc., etc. By this point, we're supposed to really be fascinated by who Gatsby is and really gripped, although to be honest I was absolutely bored. Unfortunately, Tobey Maguire gets the most screen time, and I'm absolutely baffled at how his career has been so successful. It looks like he's been to the Keanu Reeves School of Acting, and in every scene he looks surprised and almost like he's got no idea what's going on. Towards the end of the film, actually, he gets angry at some reporters, and I was really surprised that his facial expression changed. And honestly, I might be slightly exaggerating there, but I'm not exaggerating anywhere near as much as I should be, that he really is incredibly passive and looks like he's got no idea what's going on. And he's got this very strange way of delivering his lines, very odd. DiCaprio, as I've said, he does his best. There's a great quality cast here, really, Maguire excluded in my opinion, but none of them are at their best. Kirsty Mulligan has been fantastic in lots of things. Here we get no sense of her character. Men are supposed to be falling all over her. We get none of that. She's supposed to be a mother, so presumably there's all this sort of external pressure which doesn't get explained properly, so her character comes across really badly, in all honesty, and we just sort of think, oh, well, I have no idea why men are all falling in love with her, because I don't get any sense of that at all. The film is really long and it struggles to get anywhere whatsoever. We've got whole scenes of chatting where people incessantly chat, in which there are little or no insight into these characters. And the film hardly moves on at all in terms of its plot. It really does just sit there. Huge parts of the film are all style and no substance. How many times do we need to see scenes with young and rich people drinking expensive champagne while this music thumps in the foreground and they dance and cavort? It's opulent, Baz. We get it. Please move on. Do something interesting with what's supposed to be the greatest American novel ever told. None of the characters are fleshed out properly. We don't get any sense that they're real people. We spend the whole film trying to get to the heart of who Gatsby is, but we never do. And frankly, by the end of it, I really couldn't care less. I didn't care about any of the characters at all. I had no interest in them whatsoever. The most interesting characters were the ones that they made no effort whatsoever to explain, and I suspect that there was a big subplot that ended up on the cutting room floor, which was probably at least 20 minutes long of other stuff that would have gone in there, but they realised it was far too long anyway. We might be too stupid to understand what symbolism or subtext are, but just in case, Lerman has literally put that up on the screen in terms of writing things on the screen. But because he goes for style over substance, a lot of the time it's in some sort of font that is impossible to read. We get other stuff that just flashes up on the screen, and I think it's just an excuse to use a 3D effect and charge people a little bit more for the film. This film did not need to be in 3D. This film did not need a big budget. This film needed a great screenplay, and it needed to be really, really well acted by a director that understands character development. It understands the basics of cinema. We get loads of these shots of huge opulent mansions, but inexplicably they're all done by CGI effect, so they have this fake otherworldly quality, like a cheap Disney knockoff. But why couldn't they have used real mansions and just shot real mansions? I wouldn't mind so much, but it looks terrible. There's no sense to me, there's no logic for doing it that way. We also get lots of CGI driving of fast cars. It all looks computer generated, and the bits that are supposed to be exciting are just incredibly dull. Almost all the decisions made in the production seem wrong and odd, so in terms of just making this film, I don't understand why or how they've gone about this way of doing it. For me, it's probably the biggest disappointment I've ever had in a cinema. And if I wasn't doing this review, I really would have walked out, and I would have been perfectly happy in walking out. The sense of sort of disappointment, the negative feeling in the cinema when the credits rolled, when people sort of gathered their stuff, was it was a palpable sense of that was awful. Honestly, if I had to see one of the two films again, this or Fast and Furious 6, I would go and see Vin Diesel's moronic nonsense. Honestly, I would. If I had no choice. I hated that film, but this was worse. It was so boring and so pointless. Kind regards, Christopher Thomas.